Hi, my name is Greg, and I'm an academic coach here at SNHU. Welcome to this guide on how to read a math textbook. Some of the challenges that we face in terms of reading a math textbook is that it's a totally foreign skill to us. We've never been asked to teach ourselves math by reading a textbook. If you look back at your educational career, we've always had an instructor or a teacher walking us through examples, explaining how to do math. We've never really had to teach ourselves by reading a book. And therefore, we don't know that it's very different than teaching ourselves anything else. When you try to read a math textbook like a novel, it leaves us overwhelmed. And we find that we can read an entire chapter, and at the end of that chapter, we can say to ourselves, I don't think I understand any of it. So we want to put a strategy together that'll help resolve that. And we want to develop some confidence with our skills that we're learning in math. How do we do that? So tip number one, don't read it like a typical book. And the reason is each sentence is often very dense with mathematical terminology. And what happens is a lot of students read a sentence and say to themselves, I don't think I understand that. And then they go on to the second sentence and say, I don't understand that either. So what happens is they become overwhelmed and frustrated that they're not understanding any of it. So here's a new strategy. Read a sentence and then stop. Much like a sponge, give your brain an opportunity to absorb all of that information that's in sentence number one. And if it doesn't absorb it all, go back and reread it a second time or third time or how many ever times it takes so that you can feel, all right, I think I've grasped as much as I can from that sentence. And now you can give yourself permission to go on to sentence number two. And sentence number two is typically going to build on that foundation of sentence number one that you've just developed. And hopefully by using this strategy, you will understand this material better. It'll be scaffolding on top of each other. Tip number two is replicate the worked out examples provided in the book. A lot of students, we just skim this when they give us an example. And these examples in the book are a recipe for us to follow to understand how to do a particular mathematical skill. So we want to practice this. Don't just skim it and then go on to the homework and find yourself confused that you don't know where you're making your errors. Do the example from the book, write it down if you want to, or at least work out the problems and get the exact same calculations and numbers that they are. If you do, that's what's going to build your confidence. So you can feel like, now that I know how to do this skill, I feel comfortable going on to a homework problem with new ingredients. Or if you don't get the same answer that they do, you can look back through this work right here and pinpoint where your error is. Tip number three, take notes. I know a lot of us don't want to. I think now that we're not required to, like we were in high school, we feel like I don't want to take notes anymore. The benefits of taking notes is it gives your brain the opportunity to process and scrutinize the information. Lots of times we'll read something in a math textbook and say, yeah, I think I make sense of that. And then if we actually start to write it down into our notes, our brain will stop us and say, wait, where did they get that number? How did they come up with that answer? And it gives our brain the opportunity to really dig into that before we move on to a new topic. It gives you something to refer to when you're done so that you can use it from which to review or revisit the information, and it'll improve your focus. I was always notorious for zoning out when I would read paragraphs, and I would read a couple paragraphs and find out my mind was drifting and I didn't really absorb anything in those two paragraphs. So taking notes improves your focus. Tip number three is to practice and be okay with making mistakes. Mistakes are a necessary part of the learning process. I've always said to the students that mistakes aren't a reflection of our intelligence. It's simply an illustration that what we're learning is new. So any new skill that we're trying to do, we're okay. We should be okay with making mistakes. Just use them as learning opportunities and grow from them. But it is a necessary part. And when you find problems from which to practice, often our books, if you're using an online one, have participation activities from which to practice. And if there's only one or two and you don't feel that's enough, go find some more. There's often links in the book. You can use videos from which to practice. Just pause the video work out the problem, and then unpause the video to see if your work matches up with the video's work, or go find some external resources. You can Google it, the topic that you're doing, and chances are you can find some resources. And tip number 5 is to look at the assignment before you read. A lot of students read the chapter first, then they go look at the homework and find, wait, I don't remember anything in the reading that helps me understand how to do this problem. So now they get to go back and reread. So try this, try looking at the homework first. A, it gives your reading purpose. Now I feel like a detective. I'm reading the book, looking for clues that'll help me understand how to answer this particular question. It's motivating. It can be really motivating that when we find in the reading how to do this problem, we can be excited. We found our clues, and now we can instantly reinforce that skill right away by doing that homework problem. So instead of reading the book and learning 10 different math skills, we can reinforce that skill right away as soon as we find it, because we've already printed or looked at our homework problem, and we can do those right away when we learn that skill in the book. All right. I hope you found that helpful. Thanks for joining me and watching our academic support guide on how to read a math textbook. Please read this video's description for further resources.